Good morning, everybody. We are back with the final day from the 2025 Word Cup from St. Louis, Missouri, brought to you by Word Game Players Organization and Collins Coalition. It has been an incredible 4 days of action to this point, switching between the Collins and WoW divisions. And today I am joined for our final 3 games of live coverage by my good friend, top expert, Morris Greenberg. Morris, it has been pretty amazing to see what's gone down in the WoW division.
Yeah, I will admit, yesterday I knew I was commenting today and I was getting a bit nervous. Like, oh, well, Nigel's doing great, which is great for all of us, but am I not going to be able to see Nigel on stream tomorrow? And it feels like, yeah, that's kind of happened. Although if Wellington gets Gibsonized, I guess we could see what sort of occurs.
Yeah, that's true. You never know. We are headed back into the Collins division this morning with the WoW division completely wrapped up. Nigel Richards adding another huge trophy to his voluminous trophy case in grand style with one of the craziest end games you will ever see in Scrabble. Magnificent performance by him. But yes, back to the Collins division today, where we have some incredible players from around the world. In fact, world champion level players, UK champions, North American champions, and our first matchup of the day, Wellington Jighere in first place is going to be taking on the only player to hold UK and US national titles, Shin. That is a fantastic matchup, Morris, which I'm really excited for us to dive into.
Yeah, I've watched both of them on streams before. I haven't commentated either of their Collins games, I believe. I've commentated Austin for like a promotional events once. Um, but this will be really exciting to see, especially because they both score such. They both emphasize scoring and have sort of a very greedy approach to their games, from what I've seen. And so it'll be interesting to see how they outduel each other in that sense.
Yeah, it is an interesting stylistic clash as we're going to let our players know that they can start things up for us here. Wellington, I feel like he is more apt to go off the beaten path and pick some plays that achieve a really interesting strategic objective, whereas Austin is so solid at finding those really strong, what we call equity plays that combine a good score and a good leave. Incredibly strong word knowledge as well for both of these players, but maybe even a slight edge to Austin from what we've seen. Wellington just so tactical. That's where he has his edge over almost everybody he plays. He's about to go first in this game. And immediately the Collins only bingo, Morris. This one may be unfamiliar to the North Americans, but it's going to go on the board within a few seconds.
Yeah, truly a nice find.
Oh, so very nice.
Sorry, I'll walk myself out now. But yeah, great start to the game.
That is fantastic. And Morris in fine form already. Our first play of the day. Very nice. I guess only thing to consider with this is where on the board to place it. Any thoughts of what you would place, where you'd place this?
Yeah, this is a bit interesting. I'm guessing this minimizes the ability to place 7-letter words specifically. Putting the T and the R on the most left positions there should prevent sevens slightly more often. So maybe that's Wellington's goal there. Because the O tends to be a pretty good letter to put below or above a double letter score. So I think he's going for minimizing bingos rather than minimizing midpoint plays next turn.
Yeah, it's a really good point. If you imagine this word maybe being slotted here with the E in this spot, pretty much any 7-letter word is going to easily fit underneath going across the board. By slotting the word further over, as Morris said, it takes much more specific overlaps like I, E, R, anything like that is still going to play. But anything ending in a whole bunch of common suffixes just will not fit on the board after that positioning. So that's the sort of thing that when you see Wellington make a decision like that so quickly, it's because he's probably made that type of decision many, many times in his career. And this is a theme that he's applying to this position. When I have a bingo like this to open and there's no real obvious place to pick to minimize those vowels next to the double letter scores, I'm going to go for bingo prevention. I like the idea for sure. And meanwhile, it's over to Austin. No bingos available for him with that tough W. I do feel, Morris, like the W slotting in this useful spot might be the best that Austin can do here.
Yeah, are you saying something like Ween or something like that? I guess above, making W. Okay, he's going below. Yeah, that makes sense too.
Either
And
way,
it,
yeah.
yeah, and the A I think tends to be a slightly better tile than the I in 3 tile leaves, although it's not guaranteed. Um, yeah, it's going to be pretty close between those two. My hesitation with this one compared to the other one actually was this gives more plays directly below it, whereas Ween above has fewer hooks after right above WO. So they're probably pretty close, if I had to guess.
Yeah, it's an interesting point Morris is making. The possibility of playing just WEAN on top, maybe a little bit more difficult to reparallel. As it is, you can see Wellington with poked set up. That's going to score nicely and play underneath wine and score 36, in fact. Seems like a pretty nice play. Continuing to close off a little bit, though, if you imagine poked on the board, it is going to allow for some sevens to go down underneath, but nice to block the T and R of Truly, Morris.
Yeah, I mean, this seems like a very solid idea. And it looks like he's now picking it up and getting ready to play it. So, good start for Wellington. We'll see how long it takes to get a vertical play in there. This horizontal game looks aesthetically pleasing right now, but doesn't get the full space of the board. It'll be tough to access the top left, for instance, with this style.
Yeah, also true. And Wellington had to be, forgive me, everyone, I'm so sorry. Morris is bringing out the worst in me. Wellington had to be careful what he played, or else Austin would respond with something very good. In fact, Austin really wanted this T to be open so that he could play crate full, but that is now going to get blocked. So that was a tough break for Austin, looking to play an 8 through the T of Truly. He's going to have to improvise and find a non-bingo scoring play here, Morris.
Yeah, are there any specific ideas that are jumping out to you immediately?
Well, something like few are right here, making the Collins OU and Collins hook to OWE. That scores 35, leaving CL. Of course, if I'm Austin, I would first be thinking about maybe can I go down from this K, but there isn't a 6-letter word starting with K here. Few are looks to be the best scoring play that Austin has, and maybe that's the star play here by a decent margin. Morris, not seeing anything else too good. I guess there is a concern that you're trailing in the game, and that play does seem to knot the board up pretty well.
Yeah, the thing I'll say is it's early enough in the game where, and they've been playing exclusively horizontal moves. It just takes one vertical move, and then all of a sudden you have like 5 new bingo lines to work with. So I would say going for points now seems perfectly fine to me, at least, and kind of let the board naturally develop such that it could eventually have opportunities for bingoing.
Right. Yeah, that's true. I'm just trying to come up with, if not that, what is an option that could be palatable if Austin does not see fewer. A couple other choices. If he really wants to, if he doesn't see that and wants to be a little aggressive, he could play something like Fulcra here. A little bit safer would be the word furka in this spot. If you want to tack on the E, you could get a couple more points. So this is not the easiest turn. Finding all those overlaps. And Austin's thinking about it for a little bit, but knowing him, I really do expect him to eventually come up with his highest scoring play here. He is so good at finding plays like that. The interesting thing from Wellington's perspective is he's got some very, very good tiles. And after FUR, if you could just imagine that on the board right here with the F and E, he will have zagged for an enormous score after that. So, Morris, it could be an example of good process for Austin creating a really tough result unless he can draw something fantastic through the Z that's going to be an open space.
Yeah, I mean that'll be quite a blow. And yeah, I guess it's funny. I feel like I've been seeing such tight boards the past few days. My immediate instinct was to say, "Oh yeah, he has zag directly beneath the first few letters of FUR." But yeah, zag is even more hurt for Austin.
Yeah. The Z in the triple lane, something you would normally balk at for sure, but not for the huge amount of points that would be on offer for for Wellington, I should say, after that play. So let's see if that is how it turns out. If that is the truth of, what Austin's going to play and what Wellington will respond. Oh, we're seeing a very different option here of just flew across the board. Not sure if this is a miss or if this is just Austin saying, I don't need those points necessarily on such a tight board. I'm going to open up more of the board for myself, in particular the E hook on his rack. If he were to draw a bingo, now it plays in a very good spot. So let's see. Looks like Wellington going to waste little time in using the flu hook for himself with Gazed, Morris. I actually feel like Austin's play is kind of solid here.
Yeah, it definitely puts the gauntlet on your opponent, right? It forces them to have to consider which side of the board you address. And I guess Gaze does score a lot. I still think zagged would be worth considering there underneath the P and O and poked. Just because, like, you're not gonna, like, you already have the Z, so the worst of those sorts of bingos along that line are still aren't going to score that much, and you're now opening a triple line for the bingos instead. So I'm not sure if this actually negates Austin's highest scoring bingos necessarily. I think there's a lot to consider there.
Yeah, zag here probably would have been Wellington's play if you would have just, let's say Austin exchanged tiles and didn't do anything on the board and left just the existing board.
I'm realizing he's setting up B Gazed also. He kept a B.
Oh, that's nice. Though that is very clever. I wouldn't say that play scores so much that you would go out of your way to set it up, but that is a cool extra bonus keeping the B. You have a good chance of getting a pretty good follow-up play holding the B here. People are noting, and maybe it's nice for the North American players in the audience to make note that in Collins, you can put an A on this word. So that's probably something Austin is considering. He's got very good scoring plays. If he wants to cash his S, he could just play RASE right here and score a very deceptively high number of points, 42 points there. And maybe a nice consolation of that would be you keep one of your two A's for next turn in case you draw something good here. So that is one way to go. Alternatively, Austin could try to cash one of his A's or a couple with some play up top, whether it's like car and a gazed or something like that, keeping an even better leave. But Morris, keeping those nice leaves with an S in them is very board dependent, and this isn't the best S board in the world.
For now, although, like, if you make a play along the row 11 directly beneath poked, that's often going to create an S lane, right? And that might be the only tile that could, right. So especially if you go to like, if you make an oer kind of play,
Mm.
right, that would basically make the S very valuable all of a sudden, because that's an exclusive lane for only starting with an S. Um, so I see in the short term that the S isn't necessarily the best tile, but in these sorts of boards that are so clumped together with so much available space in the future, the S could become valuable later on.
Yeah, interestingly, Austin making a play that is a little bit down on the list of the engine approved plays, but it has one huge advantage, which is it sets up a very good S hook on a board that did not have one prior. So Erica going to work out very well for Austin, as now he should be able to bingo with ease. Whereas it might have been a little bit more difficult. Although with this draw, Morris, Austin was probably bingoing no matter what.
Yeah, the tile gods looked favorably upon Austin this time around. So, but Wellington got a very nice play in Bfog to clean out most of the clunk. Getting rid of BF and G on any turn is good enough usually, and scoring a lot of points with that too is a cherry on top. So, Wellington has a commanding lead that Austin will narrow a bit with a bingo, but he'll still have the lead after this bingo turn.
Yeah, for sure. You can get 73 points by playing your S here, but there's no way Austin's going to do that, opening a triple when he doesn't have to, when he can just pluralize Erica for 72 points, only a 1 point sacrifice. I feel like we're very likely to see Austin use the S hook that he just set up. But as you say, Morris, Austin is quite a bit in arrears. Very nice play, like you said, of Befog. Any word that contains BFG, as you alluded to, is going to be very useful in Scrabble, because those tiles don't work very well together. There are not very many words that contain those three letters. So the ones that do gain outsized importance. Befog, definitely a very useful word to know. No surprise for Wellington to spot it there. So we just are going to await Austin's choice here, and I would start to call attention to the timers. Wellington known to be an extremely fast and decisive player. Austin also has no issues playing quickly, but in this particular instance, he's had some tricky turns, and the time advantage is already quite extreme, Morris.
Yeah, although, yeah, that is a lot of time he's taken. And I wonder what he's thinking about here. Is he looking for any really long words, or maybe underlaps or something? It seems like this is a
Yeah.
straightforward-ish turn.
You're right. It's probably the underlaps, because you've got Lido, you have the O on your rack here. You again have the R hook that we alluded to with the few R play. So Austin is probably looking for that jackpot, whether it's something with maybe RS or SO or some combination that can still manage to fit under there. But this is also, it should be mentioned that this combination of otters blank probably yields, several, 20, 30, 40 bingos. I'm not even sure how many. So there are a lot of decisions, or rather, there's a lot of racks to iterate through that have answers in terms of, does this yield a bingo? A lot of options to sort through, but I would definitely be thinking here that of those many, many, many options, Morris, probably most of them are pretty similar to one another, very hair splitting, and maybe the time that you're spending on the decision is the most valuable commodity.
Yeah, up to a certain point. I mean, it's always a delicate balance that you want. I mean, we were watching Nigel for days, who would spend like a minute every single turn, no matter what. Somehow he could process all moves at roughly the same rate. But for mere mortals like us, it feels like, yeah, once you kind of do your due process of like making sure there's nothing huge you're seeing, then yeah, choose one that you definitely are sure is a word and doesn't give too much back.
Yeah, that's an underrated component, making sure the word you pick is valid. We've actually seen a couple games on the stream where players picked an option that scored well, did great things strategically, only one blemish. It wasn't in the Scrabble dictionary, which is like that's always an ever-present concern, and it's something that as we watch these players at such a high level picking turn after turn valid words that they've studied, it really, we have to zoom out a little bit and remember all the preparation and effort that goes into that dictionary mastery at this level. No, none of that is required to play really good Scrabble and play, have a great time playing Scrabble. It is required if you're trying to win divisions at an event like the Word Cup. As we see Wellington playing Cat parallel to Gazed and Befog. Interesting choice because he did have it here too, Morris, for a very similar score, actually the same score. So he hasn't committed his play yet. I could easily imagine him picking this up and putting it back on this tee if he felt like this Q in space would really make the upper left corner of the board difficult to access long term. That being said, his positioning blocking the E of Befog, also a valuable goal. Where are you leaning between those two choices?
Yeah, it is interesting. I mean, I think given that Austin just bingoed, if you're balancing between immediate short-term value in defense versus long-term value in defense, you would lean towards the long-term value one. That being said, you could say that this kind of kills the top right area of the board long-term too. So I guess it depends which area of the board you kind of want to make dead after this turn. And I think it's reasonable either way. I mean, the nice thing about blocking with Cot here is that it eliminates the possibility for Austin to do sneaky things along row 2 that force you to think about blocking row 1. So they're just different flavors. It'd be interesting to sort of think about what Wellington is sort of favoring versus not favoring there.
Yeah, very good point too about the possibility of just cutting off any play from this E, even the non-bingos, like you said. It might be possible for Austin at a deficit to play something to this E that very aggressively opens the top of the board, or maybe multiple lines at once. So Cat definitely stopping that before it happens. It does feel a little bit more powerful short term, as playing Cat here, these spots aren't really that much of a threat. It's going to be kind of difficult to bingo either to the T or to the R, both of which will open a triple in response. Whereas you do feel like you block a lot more stuff playing Cot where Wellington did. So as we think about it a little bit more, I'm liking more and more his choice. Austin playing Jury from his rack that contained UUYY, not the draw that you ever want to see most of the time playing Scrabble. So I think that made some sense. Another option for Austin could have been to cash one of his Ys here with something like Yum if he felt like the J had some hope for some other spot on the board. Not necessarily sure I'm seeing such a good spot for the J, so it makes sense why he would spend it right there. So back over to Wellington with Wino set up on the rack, Morris. I feel like he could be getting set to play that underneath poked for a solid score.
Yeah, seems very solid. I mean, the other thing that Cot did is it really limited scoring spots in general on the board. Now that Cot, then followed by Wino, really, like, it's bingo or bust in a lot of ways for scoring soon enough. You can kind of keep stacking below Wino, but this isn't a good, like, 30 to 40 point board. It's basically bingos or nothing.
Yeah, it's a very good point. Not a lot of easy way to scan that and sort of tell that is how many triple word scores are open. Very, very difficult to access. Certainly, you can't get to this one, this one, this one, this one. Now you can't get to this one, and this one requires an 8-letter word to ending in O. So that's a good check to see, how good the board is for scoring. Of course, there are many other ways to score points, as Austin does now cash in his other YU combination with Winey. I think that one seems pretty straightforward as a good play, and an horrendous draw for Austin, keeping ACIT. He draws I. while Wellington draws adenine from the bag and has a place to play it. This is a big swing in this must-win game for Austin.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how Austin handles
Oh, he drew Nandine. Sorry, I misread the
yeah,
rack, but it's the same principle, I guess. It's still bingo.
yes.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, this will be interesting to see how Austin tries to navigate this position. I mean, uh must-win game. He could kind of go for broke and start creating really dangerous lines long term. I don't know if that's necessarily Austin's historical style, but I wouldn't uh, I wouldn't discount him from possibly considering things like that.
Tournament situation definitely warrants him playing this maybe a little differently than he normally would, in need of a win almost at all costs. Just want to point out, I misread this rack. There was still a bingo in the spot, I thought, but also nannied available here on top of Truly for 4 more points, not opening the bottom row of the board. Yeah, it does open this triple and a few through tiles for 8s through the A and N, I should say, but maybe was that possibly a miss with tiles like the X lurking, Morris?
I don't think so. I think there were two reasons why I think he probably went with this spot. One is that it opens 2 triples rather than 1 triple. So presumably, if Austin takes one of them, you can take the other as counter play. Whereas, right, the other nanny still, right, just offers 1 triple. The other is this offers many fewer bingo lines long term and doesn't help with opening the top left quadrant. You want to put the onus on your opponent to create those chances for themselves. You don't want to give those chances to them directly. So I don't think it was a mistake. I think it was probably strategic.
Yeah, definitely reasons to like it for sure. Also, those tiles like the X, less likely to be on Austin's rack after a short play like Yum, where he almost certainly would have had something better with the X had he had it there. I mean, there is a spot right here where you might expect to see it if certain tiles, like especially M, with the M also here, you could see Mixie, a Collins word, I should say. Anyway, Austin trying to play through this rather than exchange. I think the only play worth putting on the board would have been this play of Assini opening a little bit more on this row, although those bingos aren't going to score the best. Wellington with roadies lined up, a valid play to go on top of Truly. That is a great option. Alternatively, he could play Chores here, Morris, for
Oh,
45
beautiful.
points, leaving I blank. That is a very intriguing option, scoring so well and keeping the blank for next turn. Either way, Wellington is definitely in the driver's seat, already up almost 100, and he's about to pile on.
Yeah, I feel like now I'm thinking, what would Nigel do? We saw a few times over the past few days Nigel pass up a bingo to kind of have a more commanding board position. I specifically choosing Ray Z to block a triple triple over Azurite. Um, and I guess the way to reason these sorts of decisions between the bingo versus the high scoring non bingo, keeping the blank, is what's kind of the worst case scenario of each. Is the score, and if the score differential between roadies and chores is less than the score differential between the worst case scenario of roadies versus the worst case scenario of chores, it might tip the scales towards chores.
Yeah, that's a good way of framing it for sure. Trying to see, it looks like this is going to for sure be a D as a blank. I'm just trying to, we actually have on our side the table view, and I'm seeing it right now that it was in fact a D designated there by Wellington. So roadies for 71, over chores for 45. Computer engine seems to like Wellington's choice here. And it puts him in commanding position in the game, even before you turn back to Austin's tiles, Morris, where things only get worse.
Yeah, and I think going back to what I was saying with worst case scenarios of each, this doesn't open the triple or anything, so you don't need to worry about triple triples. Both cases, the worst case scenario is probably a bingo, and that will probably be, I don't know, 20 points at most between the most dangerous bingos with the new spots Austin or Wellington just created versus if he played Shore. So I think it makes sense. Austin kind of doing the necessary things to get out of this jam and try to get at, I guess, two bingos. But given that there are only 17 tiles remaining in the game, that seems pretty unlikely. He would need to draw a bingo this turn, basically, and have Wellington play less than 3 tiles. And so I think Wellington, at all costs, should try to play 4 tiles this turn to eliminate the possibility of having Austin play 2 bingos for the rest of the game.
And to your point, Morris, almost on cue, Wellington has spotted an epic play that accomplishes that exact goal. He is surely looking at playing Mopes here, using the Collins only Ume for 52 points, using the number of tiles that you suggest to make it impossible for Austin to bingo twice while also scoring incredibly well. And to make matters worse for Austin and better for Wellington, he even keeps the X with a couple of good ideas where you can play it. This is fantastic on his part.
Yeah. So I think this should basically lock up the game. I mean, I don't think Austin has a bingo regardless. But yeah, even if he did, this is the play that would clinch the game. It's just too far out of reach. I mean, 2 bingos probably still wouldn't have done it anyways, to be clear. He's up by, or Austin's down by almost 200 points. So those need to be 2 pretty hefty bingos. But not even allowing for the second one is really, really strong.
Yeah. So great play by him for all the reasons you outline. Austin already in deep, deep trouble, even with his dream scenario of getting multiple bingos, but through very, very little fault of Austin's. Just for the record, I look back at his plays and I basically see either the clearly best play or a very, very solid play on par with other plays in those positions. He has made nary a false step in this game. He's just gone up against the buzzsaw of Wellington Jighere, playing extremely well, and also drawing some good tiles to use with that effort. So Austin may be resigning himself to a play like Veer under here, which that doesn't open very much. In fact, it closes some of the remaining bingo lines on the board. But you might have to sort of pack it in if you're Austin and say, all right, this isn't my game to win. It is past the point where I need to make crazy opening plays. I'm just going to play it straight up, get to the end of the game, and tip my cap to Wellington and hope the next 2 games go better.
Yeah. And I mean, Austin still, even though he's going to be knocked out of possibility of first place, he's still in contention to get one of the other places for cash. So he still has a lot to fight for in this tournament. And maybe he's considering some spread aspects too, then I guess this result right now. I guess Veer is nice and that leaves 2 tiles in the bag. So most of the time Wellington will empty then this coming turn, and then Austin will get tempo in the end game. But yeah, I think it's kind of just spread saving stuff at this point.
Yeah, for sure. I guess if I'm Austin, I'm also looking a little bit into this situation here. Unseen tiles, 3 vowels, 10 consonants. I would be trying, if possible, to make a play that left me at least 1 vowel. The weird thing about this is that normally you would probably play Veer in this spot without thinking, but maybe in this particular situation, a play like GHI actually has some merit, keeping 2 vowels, both of your E's on the rack for next turn, just reasoning that in many, many scenarios, if Wellington doesn't have the last E, for example, this spot will be inaccessible to him to overlap all the way across. And it seems like Austin might have been considering those 2, and he eventually goes with the more standard Veer. I can't fault him for that, Morris, at all.
Yeah, that is interesting. Well, he hasn't hit his clock yet. Okay, yes. Now he. So yeah, it is interesting also because you were saying also this blocks the X spot. Well, this does create a new X spot for even more points. Uh,
Oh, nice.
so so I do, yeah. The once you suggested GHI, I did like that a lot. Luckily for Austin, he did draw the two remaining A's, so two of the three vowels unseen to him, which the other vowel unseen is on Wellington's rack right now, and he's going to play X as we speak. So yeah, interesting choice, but it looks like it's worked out okay for Austin.
Yeah, for sure. That's just another tough break in a game full of them for Austin Shin, but I really feel like this was another customary masterclass from Wellington. A number of very, very impressive plays by him throughout. Just an incredible mix of board vision, board control, board dynamics, and just focus, mental game. Wellington very difficult to rattle as a player. He's never out of a tournament, always able to go on a long run of wins at any point. And I feel like he did not start atop the leaderboards, but clawed his way there in classic Wellington fashion. There is currently one play in this end game, which would be a real consolation prize for Austin, though, Morris. The best move for him in this end game, I guess I should be careful because I could be misevaluating. This is definitely a closed board, and maybe there's some way to do better than a traditional sequence of out in two or whatever. But Rahui right here through the U of jury, scoring 38, leaving GAT would be a pretty epic play to see Austin come up with here.
Yeah, that does look quite nice. I guess my instinct would be is if Wellington has multiple spots for the V, I think you just go for an out in two right now and keep it clean, especially when Wellington has tiles that could score if you start to play off one tile at a time. Wellington has 6 tiles, so he could also start playing off one tile at a time. So uh, yeah, it would require maybe more depth than your engine is currently considering to fully evaluate this position. But I think instinctually, it does seem right to me to go for the high point out in two sequence.
Yeah, I think there's enough good places for Wellington to somehow get rid of his clunkiest tiles, that it's okay just to play more standardly for Austin. I guess it's tough though. I'm just looking around, and if Austin were to block in this area, I'm trying to see what is the spot for the V that Wellington would have. Just looking around, not seeing a great spot for it, but we'll see what Austin does. He has RAH lined up. Oh, I think he's
I
probably
think
getting
he's, yeah,
set to, yeah, play this here. You're right.
yeah. Which is also a very high scoring play. Not quite as stylistic, but still really good. And I guess it blocks some ideas for Wellington potentially, right bit or something like that. Scores decently.
Yeah, for sure. So back to Wellington. He is very likely, I would think, to play his V. I feel like this VN meaningfully separated on his rack means he's very likely to just play VIN right here, as we got to give Austin his points for Ra. But Vin for 8. No outplays for Austin after that. So Wellington would get one more turn to work with to deploy his B, very likely somewhere. Maybe something just like bus right here seems a good follow-up play. Not that easy for Austin to get in the way of that. So yeah, relatively straightforward for Wellington to want to get rid of his V in the only spot where that's possible. Put the onus back on Austin to come up with a play.
Yeah, and it looks like he's setting it up now. We'll see how Austin responds. I think he might try to do something a bit blocky, right? Like TUI maybe, and keeping the G and the A for his last turn. Um, but we'll see.
Yeah, that looks good. So just TUI blocking the BUS bus play through there. I think the key, though, as well, is that there's one really good scoring play of great and axed.
Mm,
So
yeah,
you've
fair.
got that scores very well if you're Austin. So either you want to block Wellington's best play or just go for your own really good play. Uh, Whichever one of those. Again, it's so tough, Morris, to grind really hard on these end games. That's part of the Nigel Richards mystique, is that he's able to solve these end games so quickly, no matter whether he's winning by a massive margin, losing by a massive margin, or whether the game is really close and he needs to solve it to decide the win or the loss. He's always doing it correctly, whereas most of us are maybe not putting in the same amount of time and effort if the game is lopsided like this one.
Yeah, I don't even think it's necessarily only like a whether someone's fully locked in or not. I think he also is very precise in how he calculates endgames. Like we saw yesterday, I think he spent a bit longer on an endgame calculation at first, and it was because he figured out an out in three was his best sequence rather than an out in two that's more standard. So uh, even if people are trying really hard and right not checked out, I think there is a certain level of rigor that Nigel's probably putting into end games, even in at his peak versus anyone else's peak.
Yeah, for sure. And Wellington follows up with that play of Bus, which is his highest scoring option and best play. And Austin with his accurate spot for the eye right here in Koi for 8 points. So well done to the players for basically nailing every aspect of the end game, except maybe that crazy play of Rahui for Austin. I'm probably butchering that. As we see the handshake, Wellington 502 to Austin 344. A critical win for Wellington as he draws ever closer to clinching the Collins division, Morris. One more win for him may well do it with the way the standings are shaking out. Wellington at 20 wins after this. And based on other results, his next closest challengers in the standings may only have 18.
Yeah, I guess do we have any confirmation of how Josh Castellano did?
So Collins Coalition event director Evans Clinchy has been in the chat giving us updates that matchup between Josh Castellano and Alex Seaholm seemed to be going in Alex's favor with over an 100-point lead for Alec at one point in the game. Not 100% sure yet how that game finished up. And that would be a big blow to Josh Castellano, who was currently the closest trailer of Wellington in the standings by just one game. He would move down to 2 games back and potentially as much as 800 or maybe closer to 1,000 spread points behind Wellington after Wellington's big win. If Josh is going to lose by 100, it could be looking pretty grim for Josh to catch him. More likely to catch him would be somebody at the 18 win level with a very good spread, such as Dave Wiegand or Alex Seaholm, if he does indeed win his game. So we'll just have to see. Still plenty to learn about the tournament position going into our next round.